Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming. Nice seeing you all here. The museum called today Making the Cut. Although that's sort of as in the photos making the cut, making them good enough to get on to the next part of the judging, I think. I retitled it in my own mind, The Stories Behind the Winning Photos, because that's what Rachel asked me to talk about. So we've gone back to some of the photos that helped get my career going, that won some nice competitions. But we could call it What I Did in My Holidays, because what happens quite often, I come back from a trip tired and wet and poorer than I was before and scratched and broken stuff and everything. And the question I get is, so how was your holiday? And it's partly true, it partly is a holiday, but if you get your life right, then sort of a lot of it is. But perhaps the best title for it might be something that resonates with me from a Paul Simon song of quite a while ago. Just one line from it. These are the days of miracle and wonder, from Boy in the Bubble back in the Graceland album. These are the days of miracle and wonder. And that line, I just came across it, and it's just been bouncing around my mind for the last 10 or 20 years. Because so often I just look out at the day and the grass and the trees and the birds and the sky, and that just, in a few words, summarises sort of how I feel about a lot of days, and in particular the kinds of places I go to and try to photograph. So what's a great photo or a winning photo? In my mind, there's several definitions. One that does well in a photo competition is an obvious one. For me, because I'm trying to earn enough money to put food on the table for my family, another definition is any photo that gets used by anyone else that wants to pay for it. That's equally valid. But also, thirdly, equally valid is any photo that I like. I mean, I do this because I like it. And if you sent me away on a holiday and said, have fun, Kim, forget about work, I would take my camera and take far too many photos. So because this talk has been put together just for you people, it's not one that I've given before, it's from scratch, and it was based around Rachel's request that we look at some of the photos that have done well for me and maybe a little bit of the background behind them. And most of these photos aren't related to each other except that I took them, and so there's not a nice flow through the images today. There's not a nice story. I usually like to, if I'm giving a presentation, to have kind of an obvious story. But today we're going to be jumping around all over the place, but that's just the way it is. So a bit of a mix. We start off with some of my winning ones, and then we'll get on to quite a few that have been published or used otherwise, and I'll just start putting in some that I just like, and so they had to go in there. Somewhere about halfway through, we get to 3 sections at the end that hang together a bit better than the first half does. I was commissioned by World Wildlife Fund to document the rena and its effects on the birds around Tauranga. And I did that, and the photos ended up in New Zealand Geographic, and they're going to end up in possibly a book, possibly an exhibition, possibly who knows where. But there's quite a strong documentary photography collection there, so I'll show you a few of those. And then an area that I've branched out into the last 10 or so years, one that I'm really enjoying, Impressionism, coming back to my fine arts roots and paying homage to Monet, Van Gogh and people like that, and trying to use my camera a little bit the same way that they use their palette and their paint brushes and canvases. And that's really rewarding and fun, and I hope you like some of those. There'll be a few of those. And then we'll finish off going down to Antarctica because there's cute seals and penguins that live there, and it's a nice place to finish. Yeah, just before we get going with the images, why do I photograph? It's better than having a real job. I like mooching around by myself. I like being out in nature. Part of me is a naturalist anyway, so not a scientist. I'm not cut out to be a scientist, but I'm probably a naturalist in the sense that David Attenborough, David Bellamy, Peter Scott, people like that were naturalists. They like the natural world around them. They interact with it, get to know it in their own way. But also part of me was an artist way back, and photography has allowed me to bring that into some of the better photos. Not all of them. So let's get going. First of all, starting off with probably the image that got me thinking I should enter more competitions. I put this one in the Nikon photo competition back a long time ago, and there was a huge number of entries and it got a 3rd place, and I thought, that's kind of cool. We're at Birdling's Flat down in Christchurch, or out of Christchurch, on below Banks Peninsula, where Banks Peninsula finishes and the big long shingle beach that heads down towards Timaru starts. And on a big day, it's a steep beach, the waves come in, come rushing up the beach, rushing back down the beach, and then meet the incoming wave, and the downcoming wave undercuts the incoming wave, and you get kind of a double banger effect. This wasn't with a big telephoto lens. I was a student at the time, didn't have much in the way of lenses, so I was running back with the backwash down to the beach, grabbing photos like this, and running like heck back up the beach. At times, the wave would catch me up, and it was kind of like shotgun pellets. All the wave had lifted the pebbles up off the beach, and it was just plastering them into the back of my legs. And I thought I should be a little bit further up the beach than I am at the moment. Oh, and these are big waves. This is 3-meter waves or something. This is sort of nearly the height of, about twice my height. These were big, gnarly waves, and I often wondered later what would have happened if I had got sucked out, and I couldn't come up with any scenario that sounded good, so I don't think about that anymore. I had a good run of placings, 5 wins in the Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition, which was great for my ego, but probably more importantly, a lot more importantly, got my career going. Until then, I was just a photographer. But if you win, it's like going to the Olympics or doing sort of anything that gets recognition overseas. All of a sudden, people think, oh, okay, maybe there's something here, and jobs came in, and the whole thing was a lot easier. This was one of those ones. It's bladder kelp. We're down off Otago. We're in pretty dirty water, and it's pretty gnarly out there. There was this very rarely dived reef that it was on the charts, but been dived very rarely. I talked someone into taking me out there, and went down, and most of the reef wasn't all that exciting, but there was this wonderful bladder kelp dancing in the currents. I spent most of the dive just catching some of this motion and grace. I'd like to take credit for placing that blue mochi there, but I can't. I couldn't see what the camera was seeing. Everything's moving like this. There was fish around. You take a lot of photos, and every now and again you go, ooh, looks good. It's a technique called luck. And the more you work at it, the more of it you'll get. I know a number of you here are photographers, but also a number of you aren't photographers, so I won't add too much technical photographic stuff to any of this. For me, getting good photos is about 20% technical stuff and 80% all sorts of other stuff: passion, commitment, right place, lighting, time, attitude, a whole lot of things that sort of aren't all that technical. Ask me later about anything technical if you like, and if I can remember, I'll tell you. Same year, first seal off Cape Saunders, Otago, the same place that the huge white pointer shark is seen. A great place to dive if you haven't just remembered that it's the place where the great white pointer comes in quite a lot. And again, I'd like to take credit for composing it so beautifully, but that seal is moving at full seal speed, and it was just a and yeah, getting it like that was just luck again. Not quite a lot of luck. I took quite a lot of photos like that, and some work out, some don't. Another first, we're on the way to the Antipodes Islands. I'd conned my way onto a Navy boat, the Monowai, a hydrographic vessel, and we rolled around and the swell for 2 or 3 days on the way to the Antipodes Islands and then the Bounty Islands. I was with a film crew and some others, and the film crew were inside having dinner, and I was outside watching the sunset and a wandering albatross. Another first, I got 3 reasonably good photos of albatrosses in front of the Auckland Islands, the west coast. I was with a friend called Eric Goss, and he chose the roughest day of our whole time down there to come out of sheltered Calmly Harbour and into really rough sea, which I thought was wonderful. And Eric, being a bit of a cowboy, he came in quite close to some of the cliffs, closer than he maybe needed to, and I was yahooing and thought this was great. And I remember Sid down below, who was seasick already, saying, "Oh, don't yell, Kim, you'll just encourage him to go closer." Eric was the sort of guy who, as we're coming out of Calmly Harbour, there's a very strong inward current through it. He pretended that he was at full throttle and was just about stationary, and he kind of made an act of the whole thing, that, you know, we're only just getting out. He only just had enough power, but he had a bit more. But anyway, he took us really close to the cliffs. I have 2 other photos that have much bigger waves crashing, but which I like better, but the BBC people like this one, and the judges are always right. That's an albatross, a shy or white-capped albatross, or mollymauk, so that's a 2.5 metre wingspan. And yeah, perfectly at home, happy as anything. And down under the Antarctic ice, it's a long story how I got there, but there I was under the Antarctic ice. I was being paid. Trouble is, there's good stories behind most of these, and I can't afford the time. I would be here till 5 o'clock, I would still be only halfway through, and none of us want that. I was being paid by Christchurch International Airport Limited to go down to Antarctica 3 separate times, a couple of months each, to take photos for the Antarctic Visitor Centre. And I said, "What about underwater? You want some underwater photos?" "No." "Bugger." "You sure you don't? It would sort of really add to it." "No." "Bugger." "What if I paid for all the training and all associated costs myself?" "Oh, all right, suppose you can." So I did, and got some dives for the Natural History Unit who were down there, and had just enough dives to get a few photos, put out a children's book about it, and to be able to say I dived under there, and this photo, another of the firsts. Was I being clever again there, or was that a bit of luck? It's about time to say that I was clever, I think, but again, what makes that photo, of course, is the lighting off to the side. Yeah, just every now and again you get that right. What you can see in the background there is we're under the ice. It's quite thick ice. There's quite a lot of algae growing, or diatoms growing on the underside of it, which give the underside of the ice not sort of a nice bluey white colour, but sort of a greeny browny yicky colour. So we're looking up at where the sea ice has cracked. It's formed a lead, what they call a lead, possibly a tide crack. So the tide goes up and down, and the ice thinks, "Oh, all right, I'll break." Same competition. It didn't get a first, but it got somewhere. Waddell seal, just goofing around in its breathing hole in the slush ice. And now onto a series of photos that made the cut, that did well in the sense that other people liked them enough that they used them somewhere. And sometimes New Zealand Geographic or books or whatever. And the story behind this one is kind of miserable. We're coming back from the Chatham Islands. The last words that a Chatham Islander called out to us was, "Haven't you heard the forecast?" But the owner's partner had a party in Lyttelton to go to on Christmas Eve. So we went. And for 2 days, it was a great decision. It was silky calm seas. And then at 2 in the morning, 70 knots hit us, ripped the sail, pushed the boat over so far that the spreaders, that's the bit that sticks out from the top of the mast, they were actually touching the water. We were thrown out of our bunks. You know, the walls were now the floor. The journalist in me looked at the tiltometer, which only goes up to 60 degrees. It doesn't read anything more than that, and it was sort of jammed up. So I knew that something serious was happening. It's the middle of the night, kind of panicky. And so the next 2 days, we wallowed around in this pretty unpleasant storm. The sea wasn't all that big, but it was just lumpy and unpleasant. And we got nowhere because the owner's partner wanted to go to Lyttelton, and that wasn't the right way to go, according to wind and swell. I had a camera, an underwater camera that I had ready with film in it, sitting up by the steering wheel. And so when I finally thought it was safe, it just wasn't safe to go out on deck for quite a while. And when I finally did, I took some photos. And this one ended up on the cover of The Perfect Storm, the first edition of the reasonably famous book, and quite a few other places. So it wasn't much fun at the time. We ended up in Picton finally. We all walked off the boat. We all swore we would never go to sea again. We never wanted to ever go out in a boat again. Little sub-story. Coming off the Murnu Bank, when we finally decided, well, to heck with the party in Lyttelton, let's just do something sensible and head for Picton and go with the swell. So there was good swells running, and we were on a 22-metre boat, 60, 70-foot long boat. And who wanted to do the first watch? I said me, because I thought I could do the watch and then go and get some sleep, which would be great. So I was outside on the wheel and literally surfing this 70-foot boat down the swells, you know, the way that I used to when I was a surfer. And I remember Butler coming out, and he was the skipper coming out and saying, "Kim, do you know what you're doing?" And I said, "Not really, but it's worked so far." The idea being, it's a bit like surfing or being in a surf boat or anything, sort of as long as you're facing the right direction, which is sort of at right angles to the wave, you're fine. But if you broach, I think is the word, turn around, then things aren't quite so good. But that worked fine. We got to Picton, we all walked off the boat, and we never went to sea again for at least a month or so. I accidentally ended up having a specialty called rough seas, and I wasn't after the specialty, but I found out in hindsight that not many other people were into this photographic specialty, because when the seas were rough enough to look good on camera, then your usual thoughts were something about seasickness or your safety or dying or something like that. But for me, being outside in the open air, that counteracted the seasickness somewhat, and it was kind of nice out there. So we're in a strong, we're in the Southern Ocean. We just come out from Perseverance Harbour in Campbell Island. That's a Campbell Albatross. That's a wingspan of over 2 metres. That's big, gnarly surf out there. And it was like that the whole way to the Auckland Islands. New Zealand Geographic at the time gave me a commission. They sent me a commission assignment, sent me out on a fishing trawler out of Nelson. We went out to the Chatham Rise. We caught a whole lot of orange roughy and came back. And this is in the middle of the night on a deck that's going like this. And the writer that was sent out was so seasick that he stayed, who will remain nameless, stayed inside the what do you call it, where the captain and the thing are, the bridge, the whole time, and just interviewed the captain for 48 hours. But I couldn't get any good photos from in there, so I had to be out on the deck, and the deck was going like this, and somewhere in the middle of one night, the net came up full yet again, and got this photo. And this has ended up all over the place. It's Greenpeace has it, it's in a museum in Norway, and goodness knows where else, people's walls around the place. I call it help, and I think it works partly because there's that, it just says a lot of things without me even telling you what's in it. You can see what it is, you can see that the fish would rather be somewhere else. Yeah, that's the orange roughy that we used to catch and still catch a few of. That's the photo that proves that there's no need for quotas or anything, or that proves we got the last remaining 3,000 of them, because we know exactly where they breed, when they breed, and they're down there, and we got them. Some of the other ones that have been useful for me, I wish I had more photos like this. This is from New Zealand. It's out near White Island, showing some of the colour and diversity that we have, the richness of the fish life. Both of those coloured things, the firebrick star and the sea urchin, are subtropical, and they come down as larvae with a subtropical current. And yeah, Doc and other conservation type people have used this a lot, and yeah, nice photo. I wish I had more like it. One of the main, people ask me or think sometimes, how do I get great photos? And yeah, there isn't a simple answer, but there's a whole lot of complicated answers. Oh no, they're not complicated, but they're more subtle than the idea of if you're a 100-metre race at the Olympics, what do you have to do? You just have to run faster than all the others. But good photos are a bit more subtle than that, like good paintings or good novels or good music or good anything. But one of the things is just time, persistence, and putting in the effort. And getting on well with people. I got on well with the skipper, and so he took me to where he knew there was one of these pack horse crays. He knew it was there. He knew I wasn't going to take it away. He hoped I wasn't going to tell anyone else where it was. And I went down with a diver, and all we did for the whole dive was just photograph the crayfish, nothing else. And so I have 2 whole films of this crayfish. And yeah, it's one of the better ones. Same one. It was a large, this is a big, serious cray. It's a female. If you look really hard under the abdomen there, you might be able to see a whole bunch of eggs. Hauraki, something called the Hauraki Forum, and they're putting out their annual report about next week, and that's going to be on the front cover, which is nice. It means we eat in September, which is great. No, eating's good. I like it. Just a few I put in because New Zealand Geographic said, yep, that'll do, and they ran a feature on this one and a couple of others. Little Adelie penguin making its way over the ice, and a lot of photos are possible there, a lot of compositions are possible. As you can see, this one works mostly because of the timing. Just the penguin being anywhere else would still be sort of cute, but sort of right at that crack and with its shadow on the other side of the crack just works that little bit better.
So what time of day was that?
What time of day was that? Possibly about midnight. Down in Antarctica, as you may know, for 4 months, this is around Scott Base where I was, for 4 months over winter it's dark 24 hours a day. For 4 months in the middle of summer it's light 24 hours of the day. The trick is to try and be there between the two when you get a bit of both, or at least be there very early in the summer when the sun gets low enough that you get some of these sunsetty colours. So it was either I somehow magically managed to get on what they call a winter flight, which goes down in August, 2 years in a row, which was great. So I had a whole lot of times there when the sun did actually sink below the horizon. So it was either midnight or, don't remember this particular one. If it was in spring, it would have been evening. It wouldn't be morning, I'm not a morning person. Or if it was early summer, then it would have been around midnight. Same portfolio in New Zealand Geographic. Solander Island, or Solander Island, down south of Fiordland to the left of and therefore west of Stewart Island. It's a tiny rock called The Rock by the whalers and Solander Island by everyone else. It's bigger than this rock, it's just a pinnacle off it. And I should have been photographing the albatrosses there, and I did quite a lot, but I just liked the shape of these two pinnacles and thought there was some possibilities there. And luck, a little bit of luck that there was 2 gulls on one and 2 gulls on the other, and that the sharp one didn't have room for 2 gulls, and so you had the odd dispute, and one was in shadow and one was in a bit of light. But I spent 2 or 3 hours there, so I'm allowed a little bit of luck, and yeah, I like it. Campbell Island, underwater camera obviously, wide angle lens. Most, maybe all of the photos you'll see this afternoon from me are wide angle lens. Underwater you have to be really close. Above water it's good being as close as you can. I think it was Robert Capa, the famous photographer, war photographer, I think it was him, that said if your photo's not good, you weren't close enough. So I'm really close. I'm in amongst swirling kelp and Perseverance Harbour on Campbell Island, and yeah, I just like kelp. I like the movement and the flow, which is why I like New Zealand diving more than tropical diving. Tropical diving just has solid bits of coral that sit there and look at you and don't do anything, but here we have all these wonderful sort of visually poetic kelps that move around, and it's just visually nicer, I think. I managed to convince New Zealand Post or maybe they convinced me, I forget, but they mentioned money and I thought, that's a good idea. So you may or may not remember, but there was a stamp issue that came out a few years ago, New Zealand Underwater Reefs or something like that, which were some of my photos from around the country, including this one of splendid perch at Mare Island, Tuhua. We're about 80 feet down. I've got flash to overcome the blue colour of that depth, but also I balance that against the light levels in the background, because if the flash is too strong and the black background is black, then it just doesn't work at all. It's just a pretty boring photo. And we don't like boring. I don't like boring. Bit of time on a tiny little rock north of the Chatham Islands called the Sisters. This is Middle Sister. Went with a BBC film crew. We were meant to be there 2 days. We were there a week. The worst storm for several years came up and we just got stranded there, which suited me fine. It was wonderful. I've thrown just a few. Trouble with this kind of presentation is I get a few people that come up afterwards and say, Kim, if you're ever going, next time you go out, can I come along and carry your cameras? You know, it's obviously a lot of fun. And for the whole romantic thing, it just seems like fun, and the good bits are fun. And the other bits aren't quite so much fun. This is, on the left, you'll see my tent, me, the Kiwi. The Poms, the English people, had put their tents out in there was a flat bit, an exposed flat bit, not sheltered by anything, and they were out there. They lost their tents. One of them blew over the side. We never saw it again. And the other one would have blown over the side, except it wrapped itself around one of the guys who was busy getting his stuff out of it because he'd seen the other tent disappearing. And his tent took off, wrapped itself around him, and he dropped on it and saved that one. On the left, you'll see Westerskov's tent, solidly connected to the granite of Middle Sister Island. I wasn't wanting that tent to go anywhere. It's now raining, which is great because we'd lost most of our water. We had the water at the bottom of the cliffs down in a really safe place on the sheltered side, about 30 feet above high water level, a bit inland, perfectly safe place. All my diving gear was there as well. We lost all our water, or most of the water that was down there. I never saw my diving gear again except for the weight belt, which doesn't cost much anyway. So all my cameras and everything just are somewhere between here and Chile. So we were without water for a while, which wasn't great, but then it started raining, which was great, and so on. So, yeah, it's not all... Well, it depends whether you like it. I thought it was good fun. The albatrosses didn't think it was good fun. They nest there. There's no shelter there for them. And the winds coming in were so strong. I mean, these are big birds. These are the largest seabirds there are. Wingspan 3.5 meters. Huge birds. They weigh several kilos. And they were sitting hunkered down on their eggs. There's 738 nesting pairs there. And after the storm, there was only about 690 nesting pairs, about 10%. A lot of them got blown off their eggs. And what made it hard was they'd face into the wind, they'd face into the average wind, and then a wind gust would come from behind and literally throw the bird 2 or 3 meters through the air, somersaulting, and it would land plump, 2 or 3 meters away from its nest, thinking, well, this isn't as much fun as in the Westerskov book. I should have nested somewhere else. And it would look around and would see its nest over there and usually would crawl back to it and get back on its egg. But every now and again would just think, oh, blow it. And so we watched about 10% of them just give up breeding for the season. Sort of too hard, try again next year. The dirt on the face is just the wind-blown dust and mud. And I didn't get a photo. I was trying to get a photo of an albatross in sort of mid-somersault, but I never knew which one was going to go next, so I didn't manage that. Put this in because this is a 2-page spread in the Hauraki Forum annual report coming out. My son, some years ago, up at Lee, and just another technique, a really good one if you're an underwater photographer, where you have some of the, well, first of all, some of the underwater bit, but some of the overwater bit so that people can just relate to the photo better. If you show them a whole lot of underwater photos, people's minds kind of glaze over and they think that's nice and hope that the slideshow doesn't take too long. The largest animal ever to have lived on Earth, bigger than any dinosaur that we know about by quite a long way, is the blue whale. And there's 2 or 3 subspecies. This is the big blue whale, not the pygmy blue whale. This is the big blue whale, and that's Mount Maunganui and Tauranga in the background, and I live just behind that. So do Vivian, Gareth and Anne, who I live with. Did we know there was blue whales that close? Well, not really, but we'll take it. So we get not only blue whales, but big blue whales, and this is just out of Tauranga. I go out with a friend Butler quite often, and I take photographers out. And we're coming up to whale season. If anyone's interested, I'll run a few trips out. And, even if I don't run them, I'll still be heading out to sea with Butler. October's about the time when there will be whales there. There'll be Broodies whales, which we get up and down the coast here. Blue whales, possibly. We've seen them the last 2 or 3 Octobers. Pygmy blue whales. And then at times also fin whales, Broodies, minke, sei, southern right, humpback, pilot, killer, false killer whale, and some beaked whales and a few others I've forgotten. So we actually live, I don't know if it's a hot spot of whale activity, but that's a large percentage of the whales that we get in the southern hemisphere, all remarkably close, which is pure luck on my part, I think. I happen to live there. And yeah, just pretty neat. So that's a 20, 25 metre long blue whale. Just it was feeding. It was moving around, doing feeding type things, coming up, opening its mouth on its side, opening huge mouth, not quite the size of this room, but it felt like it, and then closing it, and then sieving it out, and then doing that again. And if you look, that's the top of the head, as you can see, and that's its blowhole. On the left-hand side there, it looks like its throat has been open, and it's just closing it. So presumably it's come up through some fish, and it's just taken a big gulp full of Bay of Plenty water to see what herring or whatever it could get out of it. Not herring, mackerel.
What lens was that on?
That was just an ordinary, my ordinary lens at the time, 28 to 135 millimetre. So it was really close. It went under the boat at times. It was really late in the day. I'd used up all my batteries. And yeah, just a little tip, if your battery is just about run out, if you take it out and then stick it next to your skin for 5 or 10 minutes, it warms up just enough to give you just enough battery power to get that shot. Which was lucky. I'd be kicking myself still if it hadn't. But I mean, we'd been out 2 days, and there wasn't blue whales or anything around. We'd been doing other stuff, and we were on our way back in, and all of a sudden the sea erupts with blue whales. And I didn't have my charger with me. Anyway, you got it. Also in the Bay of Plenty, just a little bit out from Tauranga. I could show you the whole sequence, but this is... I was deliberately in the water. I have a permit from DOC to be in the water with these guys. And we knew there were killer whales out there, so I got in the water in the general vicinity, just hoping they'd come round. Water wasn't all that clear. All seemed like quite a good idea. I was there voluntarily. I knew that killer whales don't eat people, usually, or ever, to which the whale experts say, not yet. And it all seemed a good idea until 3 of them just appeared out of the gloom and just swam straight at me. Sort of big signs up above them that said predator in sort of glowing colours. That's how it seemed. All of a sudden, it didn't seem quite so good an idea. Swam straight towards me, veered off, just, it felt like 1.5 meters away, and then just swam past. And that photo makes it look like they're quite a long way away, but this is an ultra-wide angle lens, so those guys are really close. And that's a large stingray that one of them's caught, possibly in Tauranga Harbour, and is just carrying around the way that a cat catches a fantail and then brings it in to proudly show you what it's got and plays with it, or a mouse. Other things to watch out for, be careful of. Blue shark, tonga, swam straight at me, bounced off my camera, thought, that feels a bit hard, we don't eat things that hard. Circled around me a few times and disappeared. Something else to watch out for is being about 3/4 metre inshore from where I took that photo. Big wave breaking on a coral reef in Fiji. It's all a matter of being in just, really beautiful from underwater. I love waves anyway, from above water, underwater. Underwater they're amazingly beautiful. The trick is being that far away from the breaking face, and I am really close there. I'm probably that far away from that bit of foam, and waves break all over the place, so you get it wrong occasionally and wish you hadn't got it wrong. My birthday, my 50th birthday, Auckland Islands, middle of winter. The second heaviest animal on Earth at the moment, the southern right whale. Southern right whale, the bowhead whale, and the fin whale all weigh about the same, sort of second equal behind the blue whale. Huge whales, mother and its calf. Calf wanted to come and say hello. Mother said, no, don't. and tried to head it off. Junior swam up over Mum and just headed straight for me and passed literally within touching distance. I was focused from 2.5 feet to infinity with a super wide angle lens, and it was too close as it came past. I was trying to sort of focus back. Yeah, I could have touched it, but I don't touch animals. They don't need touching. So, yeah, it was cool. That was great. Happy birthday. Woohoo! Oh, this is a baby, reasonably newborn. That's why they're there. So newborn, but a ton or more, 5 metres or more. And Mum was bigger. Tonga now, I went there 4 times. I foolishly thought if I got a hold of whale, shark and dolphin photos, I might make a whole lot of money. It never quite worked out. But it was a lot of fun at the time. And from 4 trips up there, a month or more there each time, I had 20 really good seconds of humpback time. And this is part of that. So a young humpback that's come out of the blue to say hello. Swam past me within almost touching distance, swam over to my mate Daryl, pushed Daryl gently out of the way, circled round him, came back, and then quite deliberately picked me up with its pectoral or its arm and carried me along for a while. And I think this photo I've taken sort of as I'm being carried along. It's super wide angle again, and I looked into its eyes and its eye, and it looked into mine, and we thought whatever we thought. I don't remember what I thought, but afterwards I do remember thinking, I wonder if I took any photos. I mean, you don't get carried along by a whale very often. Fortunately, there's part of me that said, photo, photo, photo. You can enjoy the experience in hindsight later, but get a photo. That was cool. Cuddled by a whale. Baby at the top, mother below it, and the father-to-be of next year's baby under it. It's called a male escort. They're just mum and escort are thinking about it. We're in Tonga again. On to a bit more sobering notes here. You all know about the Rena. Well, Wildlife Fund and Forest and Birds said, Kim, fly over and get some photos for us. And so I ended up with photos of the Rena, and I was given full and free access to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre, or Wild Wildlife, something or other centre, at Tauranga, and I went there a lot of the time, or many times, and took a lot of photos and have a pretty nice collection that'll end up in various places. There's a whale coming ashore seen from the air. It's mucky, yucky stuff, but artistically kind of nice up towards the left, I think. Lovely textures. But as you know, just really bad news for a lot of birds, and I saw a lot of grown people in tears or close to tears as they dealt with these. I mean, these were volunteers mostly, and dock staff, mostly volunteers that just wanted to do their bit, and it was just a tough time. So that was fluttering shearwaters, I think, and diving petrels, the smaller ones, 2 giant petrels there, and the wing of an albatross. Went round with one of the penguin rescue teams that wandered around the beaches looking for oiled penguins night after night for months. And any oiled ones they brought in for rehabilitation. Plucky little things. The Rena had a lot of positives which weren't seen at the time, but one positive I see is that people of Tauranga and maybe New Zealand just care a little bit more about their beaches and their sea and their penguins than they did before. Seeing what we had damaged and knowing what we could lose just made a lot of us just that little bit more aware that, aware of what was there, aware of what it's like normally, and maybe we should look after it a bit better. Penguins that came in looking like this generally got cleaned, the oil got taken off them, they got fed, looked after, and when they were ready, they'd go back out to sea. There was 3 penguins in a row that came through, and I think this was one of them that weren't going to make it. So this is a penguin on its way out. Just too much oil. They'd already lost, and it still looks kind of plucky, but the handler let that one go and it just flopped down on the white sheet. They took blood samples and looked at the various bits and pieces that you get in blood, and if they were below a certain level, the vets knew that it wasn't going to make it, whatever they did, and so they euthanized it, and quite a few penguins were put down. But the lucky ones, which was about 2/3 of them, I think, 2/3, 3/4, something like that. Most of them, but not all of them, were rehabilitated, were fed, were looked after wonderfully by vets from Massey University and a whole bunch of volunteers, some people that flew in from USA and other places. They looked after them 24 hours a day, looked after them wonderfully, and there were 3 public releases like this and a whole lot of smaller private ones in various places. A lot of people turned up, everyone cheered, and we all felt a lot better. Somewhere about the arena, I called myself media. I wrote National Geographic under Westerskov, and it got me out to various places I wouldn't have got to otherwise, which is fine because the photos ended up in New Zealand Geographic. So I went out with the media scrums on, they being Maritime New Zealand, put on some boats and went out 2 or 3 times, and we got some close-up photos. Because as you may know, there's an exclusion zone around the arena. You just can't go within 2 or 3 miles, I think, nautical miles. Was 3 miles, I think it's now 2 miles at the moment. So you can't just wander out and take photos, but it's part of a media contingent. Once with the Navy. Navy have wonderful lunches if you ever... They're amazing. I went out with the Navy to all the sub-Antarctic islands a long time ago, and we didn't eat like they eat now. It's amazing. It's great. I'd recommend it. That was the arena. 2 more sections to go. This one is the artist in me saying, let's have a play, Kim. Let's see what you can find out there and let's see what you can do with it. And more in hindsight, as I'm trying to sort things out in my mind so that I can teach others about it, I've divided my own photography at least into 3 different kinds. One is straight reel photography, and all of what you've seen so far is straight reel documentary. I haven't done anything to it. I haven't added any dolphins or rainbows, and I haven't taken anything significant out. I might have brightened the colours a bit, things like that, but it's the way it was, near enough. But there's another area that I'm calling photo impressionism, where I'm deliberately using camera techniques to create something that pays homage to the Impressionists, or that makes me think, yeah, that's kind of nice. And where I'm deliberately changing something by movement or some other technique, mostly in the camera, but sometimes a little bit later, I'm calling that photo impressionism. But there's also a group that falls kind of halfway between the two, and this is one of them, where I haven't done anything clever at all. That's just the way it was. I've brightened the colours a little bit in Photoshop later, but that's just the way it was, and I'm calling those semi-impressionism. And here I'm in a small secret stream, a little pool in the Kaimai Ranges. My son Gareth's sitting on a rock there, just paddling the water slightly, just cooling his feet, and there's some ripples coming, and some ripples coming from the waterfall a little bit higher up, and the colours of the sunlight through the green just add up to this. And the tricky bit, it's not really tricky because I'm always looking for things like this, but the thing is just seeing it. It's not being all that clever, it's just seeing it. So that's semi-impressionism. Impressionism, this is flowering cherries, early winter, and with camera movement and one or two other little tricks. Just playing around, having a lot of fun. What's nice about photo-impressionism is the smiles on the faces of the people I teach it. We meet in the middle of winter and there's nothing much happening, but with a few simple techniques, you can, in playing around with motion mostly, a bit of post-processing later, you can just create really neat stuff and textures and colours, even on a lousy rainy day or anywhere, or in your garden or in the driveway or at the local park. Or, there aren't good real photos to be had, but photo-impressionism can be created anywhere, anytime, which is neat, good fun, loving it. Again, it's mostly sort of semi-impressionism. It's more or less the way it was. I haven't done much to it. Sun sparkling off the sea. And a whole series of railway ones, and especially with tunnels. Had a lot of fun there. So we're coming out of a tunnel. Had you just never know what's going to happen if you're a photographer once you get up in the morning. Before that, you know what's going to happen once you get up. But a story a little bit like the Rena penguins. It sort of made me think about a lot of things. I have this photo on Getty Images. It's one of my sources of income. And I got an email from a woman who lives in USA, and she had a much-loved daughter who was blonde and young and beautiful and 20 years old and dead. She had some really bad, debilitating disease. It didn't affect her looks. I saw photos of her. She looked gorgeous and young and vibrant. She died at age 20, and the mother said something like her purpose in life now was just to remember her daughter and to create a memorial for her. And she was looking around for photos to, I think, put on a website as kind of a memorial to her daughter, and she came across this photo and said, that's sort of what I'm hoping for and looking at, and could I get it off you? And I said, yeah, talk to the people at Getty. You can't get it off me, and I hope it goes well. So, I think that one works because it says, it's not just saying railway and tunnel, it talks to us of things like hope and ahead and whatever you want it to say, really. Journey, heaven, whatever. And impressionism, I've played around a little. Mostly it's just a long shutter speed. Anyway. And then others like this back into semi-impression. Oh, it's not really semi-impressionism. It's almost a totally straight photo, just a little bit of, slight bit of fogginess and goldiness. But the original photo is pretty much that. My mermaid photo. put a lot of effort into getting mermaid photos, and for about every month of effort and every $2,000 or $3,000 of dive trips and film and paying for Amy's wetsuit and stuff, you get one photo like this and a whole lot that aren't so good. But just one great photo every now and again is what keeps me going, and the rest of the photos you don't have to show anybody. And and you shouldn't show anyone. One of the things as a professional, I just show my best. And if you're trying to impress anybody, be it in a competition or your friends or anyone, just show them your best, and your best will be good, and they'll think, geez, you're good. But show them a whole lot of stuff, and they'll realise that you're no better than anyone else. You take just as much rubbish as everyone else. So just show your best. We're now in Antarctica, and there's many good reasons for being there, and this is one of them. It's just a few weeks old. That's the big brown thing in the background is Mum. And if you're a pup, you stay very close to Mum for as long as possible. There is no food apart from Mum for quite a while, and then before you really want to know about it, your Mum has pushed you into the sea, which is minus 1.8 degrees centigrade, and you're expected to swim and start finding stuff to eat, and all of a sudden, but they got a thick fur and a thick blubber by then, and they just a month or two old, they just take to it immediately. It's great. Again, a bit of luck, but I'll take luck. I just happened to be there. You need to push doors to get luck, but I just happened to be there at a time when the Natural History Unit was there doing a film on emperor penguins. They'd staked out a route across to the Cape Crozier penguin colony. They'd put a hut there, and they were going back every month for a year to film it, and I just happened to go along on the trip at the totally perfect time. The chicks were old enough to be cute and fluffy and endearing, but still young enough to be dependent on their parents and lived mostly on their parents' feet. And there's not much, there's no McDonald's or Cinema 8 or, we're in Auckland now, aren't we? What do you have here? Whatever movie theatres you've got here to go to. If you're an emperor penguin chick, there's actually nothing out there. There's sky up there, there's ice under you, there's wind, and that's about it, apart from your parents. So you hang on to them. But you do have each other, and the parents make a point of coming together and facing each other so that the chicks down on their feet can start socialising with other chicks, and as they're doing here. It's kind of cute. You know about human babies, and that the cry of a baby is meant to make everyone, especially mothers, come running and do something. The emperor penguin chicks have their own version of that, but it's really cute. Well, it's cute to my ears, but to a parent it just means more food, more food, more food please, more food now, more food please. And sometimes the penguin hasn't eaten for a long time, him or herself, but they're designed so that they can bring up something from inside and feed the chick a bit more. The chick grows rapidly and stops complaining for up to 3/4 of an hour. My first trip down there a long time ago, 82, 83, the huskies were still there, and I was lucky enough to run with the huskies up to Cape Royds and back. Part of a Japanese feature film that was being shot. That was the excuse. I think our excuse was we just wanted to go out with the huskies. So it's now somewhere about midnight. Huskies are just tethered to their place on the ice. Low midnight sun. Just a couple of photos for those of you that want to hold my bags. That's me standing there in the red suit, ready to go down, and there's a couple ready to go under. That's 2 meters thick Antarctic sea ice. The world's second largest plane, the US Air Force Galaxy, was landing just about 10 kilometers further along on this very same ice. So 2 meters of sea ice is enough for that. it's enough to cut most of the sunlight out too. So down, once you get down that hole and through a bit of slush ice, you're down into very clear water, very dark water, very scary water, but quite beautiful in its own way. And I won't take you there today, we're a bit short of time. But another one for those of you that want to carry my bags. We were heading across, I forget what our excuse was, pre-season sea ice survey, I think we called it. Just finding out where the cracks were and what was going to be safe to travel on when we started doing serious stuff in summer. It, to me, looks about -30. One of the Haglins broke down, so we had to make camp for the night, put up the tents, got the food out, got the primuses going, had the food, and I remember very clearly, and actually got written up in New Zealand Geographic at the time. I think it was spaghetti bolognese, and it was steaming hot when I started it, and I was eating as fast as I could. I couldn't eat the bit on that side. By the time I got to that side of the plate, it was frozen, and it was frozen to the plate, and I couldn't do anything with it. And so, of course, you don't do dishes. You just throw everything in a box and worry about it a few days later when you get back to the base. So that was good fun. That was my tent. That was my accommodation on the diving trip with Natural History New Zealand. We didn't dive that day. It wasn't a blizzard. It was just a bit of wind and a bit of snow, and it wasn't all that cold, but yeah, blowing snow, and that was good fun. I forget what I did. I think I went out and photographed Waddell seals. The last few shots, 3 or 4 shots, long story, I'll try and cut it short. I was in Antarctica the 3rd, 4th and 5th times to get photos for the Antarctic Visitor Centre, as I said. And I had a long list of photos that they wanted, and many of them required a helicopter flight into the dry valleys, which were an hour or 2 across McMurdo Sound and onto the continent of Antarctica. And I was given a day or 8 hours or 15 hours of helicopter time for a lot of reasons that, yeah, the helicopters didn't fly that summer. A couple of them of that kind of helicopter had fallen out of the sky elsewhere in the world, and so the US grounded every single helicopter of that make everywhere, and so no one flew anywhere. But the New Zealanders said, oh, we got some helicopters, we got some good pilots, we'll lend you 1 or 2, and so some New Zealand pilots and helicopters came down. And but the weather just wasn't good enough to fly across, and it wasn't good enough the next day or the next day or the next day, week after week. And finally, and my pay had run out about a month earlier. I was only being paid up until the 31st of December or whatever it was, and we're now just about in February. But I wanted the photos, they wanted the photos. But just day after day, the weather not good enough. And then finally, the very end of the season, the Americans had already packed up all their gear. The New Zealand pilot, Rob Nichol, rang up and said, Kim, 8 o'clock, we're on. The weather had cleared. We flew across McMurdo Sound to the continent, flew around the dry valleys. It looked like this. It was amazing and wonderful. We forgot to come home. We left at 9 in the morning. No one had told us to be in by whatever time. There was a fuel dump over there, so we could just keep getting refueled, and we forgot to come home. We had 14 hours in the air, which was wonderful. And then finally, if you're photographing for 14 hours and a thing that's going like this, and you're having to decide where to go next because you're in charge of where to go, and you're continually doing things knowing that it's in New Zealand, like saying, geez, that looks tight in there. I bet you couldn't get up there. And sort of this phrase, I bet you couldn't, just ignite something in the average Kiwi bloke's mind. And he said, watch this. And you think, geez, that was good. Yeah, cool. And you get the photo, and then you go and do it somewhere else. Rob was amazing. We got a lot of good photos. 14 hours worth of films all on the floor of the helicopter, boxes of them. Finally, we ran out of energy and steam, and I was getting a headache, and I don't know how Rob was feeling. And we finally flew home over McMurdo Sound and along the ice edge. So that's the McMurdo, what do you call it? McMurdo ice shelf there. So we flew along that. This was taken at a different time, but it's the same ice shelf. And Rob looked down and said, killer whales, Kim, you interested? And he had a think, and that was a silly question to ask him. And he dropped down. The ice was so rough he couldn't land, but he put the skid, he hovered with the skid just touching one bit of ice, and I jumped out, and the killer whales were doing nothing much. The killer whales don't, they swim underwater, you don't see them unless you're diving. They don't do anything interesting photographically, but I was, just in case something was going to happen, I was just keeping an eye on, I hadn't seen them for a minute and a half, and then just all of a sudden in the middle of the viewfinder, 3 rows up, hovered there for half a second, a little speech bubble appeared saying, humans, yes, we don't eat those, let's go somewhere else. They sank again in unison and disappeared, and I never saw them again. And I thought, I wonder if I got it. And this is the last photo, just a postscript to that. A month later, I'm back in New Zealand, and the films are being processed sort of one by one. You don't ever send the whole lot up to the lab at the same time, because that's the day that the courier catches fire or something. So they go bits and pieces at a time. I was hanging on to this film. So it went up later, and then there was a phone call. Kim, those spy hop, we're very, very sorry. That's never a good start to a conversation from a photo lab. There's a film here, some spy hopping killer whales, and we made a real mess of it. I forget what it was, but they basically ruined some of the images. I thought, yeah, that's great. Fortunately, it was a different film, one where the spy hopping wasn't nearly as good. This one was fine, and it was sharp, which was good. That's my lot. Thank you very much.